So what could a 20th century political icon possibly have in common with an ancient theological journey? Well, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating text that uses one of the most famous walks in modern history to explain a much older one. We're going to deconstruct how these two long walks, one political, one spiritual, are woven together into a single, pretty powerful narrative.
It all kicks off with these incredibly powerful words from Nelson Mandela. They immediately hook you with a story of struggle and endurance that we can all understand. This isn't just about one man's life. It's a feeling we all know, and it really lays the foundation for the first story this text wants to tell. All right, so let's start with that first journey. We're taken through the incredible and honestly grueling life of Nelson Mandela, a story that's all about fighting against odds that seem completely overwhelming. 27. Just let that number sink in for a second. 27 years. That's how long Mandela was imprisoned with hard labor on Robben Island. It's a number that represents an almost unimaginable sacrifice, a massive chunk of a life given to the struggle against the injustice of apartheid. And this timeline just lays out that journey perfectly. You see the move from struggle to imprisonment, but here's the game-changing moment, the negotiations. What's absolutely wild is that he started these talks from inside prison, risking everything. This wasn't him just waiting around. He was actively paving the way for his release, and eventually his presidency. It really truly was a long, winding road to freedom. Okay, but this is where the story gets even deeper. See, it's not just about winning the presidency. It's about what Mandela learned on the walk itself. And that lesson, it forms the central theme for this whole explainer. And here it is, the full, profound thought from his autobiography. My walk is not yet ended. This is the key. Freedom isn't some final destination you just arrive at. Nope. It comes with new challenges, new responsibilities. Getting to the top of one huge hill just shows you how many more there are to climb. It's this idea of a journey that never really ends that the study uses to pivot to its second story. So now we start to see how this idea builds. The narrative makes a huge shift from the historical and the political straight into the spiritual and theological. But get this, it uses the exact same framework of a long walk. That's the big question, isn't it? How on earth can a 20th century political struggle work as a metaphor for a spiritual journey that goes back thousands of years? Well, the source draws a direct line, and it all starts with the foundation of its beliefs. To really get a handle on this second walk, we've got to look at what the source presents as its guidebook, its map for the journey ahead. Okay, so right away, the Bible is framed in a very specific way. It's not just seen as a history book, but as the divinely inspired Word of God. The text says it holds the essential knowledge needed for salvation, which basically makes it the ultimate guide for humanity's own long walk. Now, this verse, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, this is where the belief gets really tangible. The idea here is profound. It's suggesting that God didn't just send down a map for the journey. According to this theology, God actually joined the walk, living life right here alongside humanity. So this guidebook, the Bible, it's really wearing a lot of hats. It's a record of human experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It tells the story of Jesus, explains this giant cosmic conflict, and in the end, it offers a path for how to navigate a pretty tough world while looking toward a future one. It's like the ultimate instruction manual for the journey. So let's look at the timeline of this second journey. Just like the source laid out Mandela's path, it maps out the history of humanity's relationship with God. And believe me, it has its own share of incredible highs and devastating lows. You can really see the dramatic arc in this timeline. It starts with this perfect closeness, God literally walking with humanity. Then, bam, a major break, what's called the fall. And what comes next is this long, difficult process of trying to reconnect. You have key milestones, like the sanctuary, a physical place for God to be among people. And then, the most critical point, the arrival of Jesus. Every single step is shown as an effort to close that gap, all leading up to the promise of a complete reunion someday. And all of this brings us right back to that one central, unifying theme from Mandela's quote, the idea that the journey keeps going. This is the core takeaway that ties both of these epic stories together. So when you boil it all down, what this text does is pretty brilliant. It uses Mandela's very real historical struggle as a powerful metaphor for a huge, sweeping theological one. Both are framed as long walks to freedom, and both are filled with mistakes, huge hills to climb, and the constant reminder that the journey isn't over just because you've reached one milestone. And that leaves us with this final thought, echoing Mandela's own powerful words. We've just looked at two incredible journeys, one political, one spiritual. And in both of them, the struggle is ongoing, and the final destination is still out there on the horizon. It really makes you stop and think, in our own lives, what does it truly mean when the walk is not yet ended?